Thank you for tuning in to the only station giving you double the information and inspiration. WDRB Media and WGIV, the soul of Charlotte. This is Marriage Matters, and I'm your host, the Marriage Coach. Make sure that you tune in every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. for tips and advice on all matters of marriage. Be sure to like us on Facebook by searching for Marriage Matters /WGIV so that you can stay abreast of topics, ask questions, or comment during our interactive segment of Marriage Matters. Our show sponsor for today is It Takes Two Marriage Coaching. It Takes Two provides individual and group marriage retreats to couples who are looking to strengthen their marriage and have some fun. Today we're going to be doing a special show. It is sort of a follow-up show from last week. If you were tuned in last week, we had a roundtable discussion with 3 wives who were just kind of sharing their thoughts and opinions on love, romance, parenting, being a career woman, and just balancing the act of being a wife in 2015. Today, we are going to be getting the views, opinions, and thoughts of husbands. Today, we're going to be having a roundtable discussion with 2 husbands that are in the studio today. We're going to be talking about everything from sex, responsibilities, and romance. We've got 2 husbands in the studio today. They both represent different phases of marriage. First guy we've got in the studio, we have Mr. Aaron. Aaron has been married for 6 years. Aaron, are you in the house with me today?
Yes, I am. Good to be here.
Thank you. We're so excited about having you today. And our second guest is someone that you all have not heard from yet. He is my husband, and his name is Maurice. Maurice and I have been married for just about 8 years. Maurice, are you excited about being in the studio with me today?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to just dig right into this. And, you know, there's been so many changes to what marriage looks like now in comparison to, you know, what we probably know from marriage from our parents and our grandparents. So 2015 marriages typically are looking a little different than what our parents' marriages look like, than our grandparents' marriages look like. So we're going to start with this question. In 2015, what does your marriage look like? Is it similar to your parents? Is it similar to your grandparents or those that came before us? Or is your marriage have a different spin, a different look because the roles and responsibilities are different?
Is that open for either one of us? Or?
It is open for either one of you all.
Maurice?
Okay. I think it looks the same. My grandparents worked. My grandmother worked. My grandfather worked. Me and my wife work. My wife has 3 jobs. I have 1. We have 3 girls. We handle responsibilities with taking them to school, getting them ready for school. We have to have responsibilities to ourselves. So I think it's pretty much the same as what our grandparents did and what my parents did.
Okay. And I'm not going to ask you for your last name, Maurice, but tell me how old you are.
I'm 32.
Okay, 32. So I'm only asking you that because I do think I want to kind of point out that I think sometimes when we talk about what we know from our parents and our grandparents also has to do with age and sort of the generation that we grew up in and the generation of our parents and grandparents. So maybe, you know, just to kind of give a perspective maybe of the generation that your parents are in and your grandparents are in. So you're 32.
Yes.
All right. So, Aaron, how does your 2015 marriage look? Is it similar to the way you were raised?
It's different.
Okay. Tell me how so.
I think each generation adds its own twist. Mm-hmm. I think you have, with the growth of the computers and cell phones and everything, it pushes you faster. Mm-hmm. I think it's more of a challenge to try and stay with the family unit more than now. So you're connecting, texting, or you're Facebooking, or you're traveling, and you don't get as much FaceTime as you would like. Do I love my marriage? Absolutely. I couldn't see it any other way with any other person. My parents loved each other, and my grandparents loved each other, but it's all different. And you see the differences in the different generations before them. You always want to be better than your parents, and your parents always want the best for you. And hopefully you can deliver that. So I think it's different. I think the love is still the strength in love is there, and that's the same. But I think how we do it is totally different.
How you do it is totally different. So speaking of the how we do it, so what I kind of did to prepare for this segment, I kind of got some of the thoughts and ideas of other wives and other husbands, and wanted to kind of hear from them some of the topics and concerns and issues that come up in their marriage, to kind of bring that up in our conversation today. So I know, one of the funny things I think that comes up in a lot of our marriage retreats is the concept of time frames. And so what I mean by that, your wife says, babe, I need you to change the light bulbs in the garage. The light bulbs have gone out in the garage and they need to be changed. And for a lot of the wives that I've talked to, when they're making that comment, for them, they're talking about like in a few minutes, an hour would be about the max that we're referring to, but we really need this done in a few minutes. And for some of the husbands that we've spoken to, when a request such as that is made, that means I can get to it in the next few days or so. Not really an urgent issue or not anything that needs to be done ASAP. So I'm just curious for you husbands today, what does the time frame look like for you? So when you have a request from your wife, what in your mind is the time frame to fulfill that request?
Okay, well, I'll take this one since I gave you the last one first.
Okay.
Excuse me. First, I'd like to say it's very important to know your partner, to know their habits, to know them as a person. And then I think that helps in that timeline. Because when I tell my wife, I want to be ready at 7, when I go somewhere at 7, it's probably not starting until 7:30, or I give her an extra half an hour.
Okay.
I tell her it starts an extra half an hour beforehand, because I know she wants to get those last touches in there. That way, we're not rushing, and then by the time we get in the car, I say, okay, we got time. She's
okay.
so
you tell her a few minutes before because she takes a little longer.
Right.
Okay.
And I like to get places, as you can tell, on time.
Yes, you do.
And so knowing my partner, I know things come up, and I know how things work. And she wants to check on kids and different things, and so I know my partner, so I know what to do in terms of time frames. And for myself, when she's asking me, when she does get my attention, my undivided attention, I like to do it right then.
Okay.
Sometimes guys can get into the game.
Can I clap, or will it just be too crazy on this side for me to do this right here for that answer? See, I like that. So you do that right then and there.
Yes.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me now, so you said when she does have your full attention. What did you mean by that part, though?
Because if we're watching a game or whatever it is that we're doing, it could be working on the car or whatever, and you just yelling down, we might be really entrenched into what we're doing. And if you don't have our attention, then it could seem like we didn't do what you asked, but we probably just didn't hear you. So when you have my undivided attention, that means I know what you asked me for. Then I do it no matter what I was doing. I'm doing it right then, because it's so much easier to do it then and not get caught up in what I was doing, because it can get passionate, whatever you're doing, and you forget.
Gotcha.
So
Good stuff.
that's me.
Okay. All right.
Aaron, you're making my job hard over here.
We're in this together.
My view on time frame is it depends on what it is. Some things she might feel like it's an emergency, it's urgent, it has to be done now, and I don't feel it's that way. So I kind of balance on what it is, what the request is. Like, for example, for the light bulb, like if I know the garage, I come in the garage every day just like she does. If I see the light is out, then okay, I'll get to the light eventually. It's not something that's going to stop us from coming in the garage. It's not something that's going to hinder us. It's not something that's going to hurt us. So whenever I feel like, okay, today's the day I'm going to put the light bulb in, it might be today, it might be tomorrow, it might be next week.
Next month. 6 months,
It might.
maybe.
The light bulb's going to get put in, just not on her time frame. But if it's something like, okay, we need groceries, or we just say the light just got cut off. The electricity got cut off. We need to pay the bill. We forgot to pay the bill. Okay, then that's more urgent because we all need the lights. So, okay, I'll drop what I'm doing and make the phone call. That's more of an urgency time frame than you telling me to change the light bulb. So it varies on
Depends
what
on
her
the
request is. babe, I need oil in the car. Okay, you could go another 20 miles before you need an oil change. So it's not like I need the oil right now, but I know you need it. You told me you need it, so.
That's fair. And let me just point out, this show is for the perspective of our husbands. So I'm leaving my perspective out of it. I'm really, really digging into your brains and figuring out what you guys feel and think about things. So we're going to take a short break and pay some bills. When we come back, we will continue picking the brains of these husbands.
Get ready, Charlotte, for the first annual Step Into the Queen City Detroit Ballroom and Chicago Steppin' event, September 25th through the 27th, 2015, hosted by Kim Pickett of STEP, This Way Urban Ballroom, and Vanessa Jenkins of the Queen City Steppers. Guest instructor, Drury Alexander, Detroit, Michigan. For private lessons, call 704-401-8890. DJ Art of Noise out of Virginia Beach, Virginia will be on the ones and twos. All events held at Lynn's Dance Club, 4819 South Tryon Street. Go to paypal.com, the Queen City Steppers, for tickets. For hotel rooms, call 704-525-5005. Ask for group code Queen City. Queen City.
Welcome back to WDRB Media and WGIV, the soul of Charlotte, and those streaming live through the free TuneIn radio app. You're listening to Marriage Matters, and I'm your host, the Marriage Coach. If you're just tuning in, we're in the studio with two husbands, two of whom are fathers, businessmen, as well as husbands, obviously. Make sure you are tuning in every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. for tips and advice on all matters of marriage. Be sure to like us on Facebook by searching for Marriage Matters /WGIV so that you can stay abreast of topics, ask questions, or comment during our interactive segment of Marriage Matters. Also, be sure to check out our website at www.itttakes2marriagecoaching.com for more information on our services. All right, so if you're just tuning in, we're going to dig right back into our discussions with the two husbands we have in the studio today, Aaron and Maurice, and they have just been giving us some thoughts, opinions of what it's like being a husband in 2015. So we talked a little bit about time frames right before the break. So I have to just kind of ask this as a quick follow-up question. So considering the term urgent, I want to know, what does urgent, or what do you constitute as urgent in your marriage?
What do you mean? Like anything that's...
Whatever. So for example, and I was also kind of talking about that, preparing for this session, I had some conversations with husbands and wives just about issues within the marriage. One of the issues that came up time and time again was this concept of time frames, and how we everybody operates on their own time frame, and sometimes that's okay with the other mate, and sometimes it can be a true headache for the other mate. So when we say that something is urgent in our marriage, what are we typically talking about? Urgency. And that could be different depending on
urgency
who you
is
are.
A perception for the most part. So depending on her tone in terms of how she calls, in the house or whatever, it may just be the distance between us. But if I hear a call a louder pitch, then I'm running to find out what it is. Yep. And then she said, "Oh, it's not an emergency. I just needed you." I'm like, okay. So what is it? So. But other than that, whatever my wife perceives as an emergency, I have to perceive as an emergency. It's just, like I said, it reinforces the knowing your partner. Because if I take what she finds to be important as an emergency, if I take that as not an emergency, then I'm belittling her. And I don't want to do that. I want to make sure if it's important to her, it's important to me. And it's an emergency.
That's good.
I read that somewhere. No?
You read that somewhere? I'm saying that's good. That's a lot of wives right now. Like, are you listening to this, John? Like, they want that in their marriage. I think that's an excellent concept, though, for marriages, for both parties. What your spouse considers an emergency or urgent should also become urgent to you, because it's about making each other happy. And you're right, the concept of urgent is really it's really in the eye of the beholder. But if my goal is to make my husband happy, if it is urgent to him, then it really should be urgent to me.
And once you ask yourself, really, is it worth an argument later? Even if you don't perceive it as an emergency, make it one.
Right.
Because it's so much better. And then the respect gets so much higher.
Right.
So
That's
you can
good
do it.
stuff.
Know your partner. Sorry.
That's good stuff.
I say everything that Aaron said.
You just second that?
Agree, yes. I put my notions approval on that.
I said we in this together,
Yes,
right? Yeah, I got
let's
you.
go.
All right, I'm gonna let that one slide, Maurice. We're gonna keep it moving. All right, so let's kind of talk about this concept of 2015 marriages. So we know that in our marriages now, you've got so many different roles. We've got kids. You all are both, businessmen. You work full-time jobs, as well as being a full-time father, being a full-time husband to your wife. And then I'm sure you wear other hats, maybe within the church or within the community, or your brother, your son. You've got other roles in your life. So we've got a lot of things that we're juggling every day. How do you all handle the responsibilities within your marriage, if that makes sense? Or I guess another way to ask it is, how do you all determine who does what? You're going to handle this, I'm going to handle that. How is that kind of determined? And for each person, I know that looks different. But for a lot of couples, they don't even know how to have those conversations about how do we even sit down and come to agreement on who's going to do what. So how did you all work that out within your marriage?
Kind of for us, we talked about it, and then in certain aspects, it just whoever took the lead role, and then that person took responsibility for that. And like for instance, I take basically the lead role in our kids when they come home with homework and getting them ready and food, and my wife takes the role in my wife takes the role in preparing the food, handling the business to make sure the bills get paid. So we kind of discuss it, and we fall into what the person does best.
That's
so
good.
if you're good at A, B, and C, and I'm not, then I'm gonna take D, E, and F.
Right. And before you answer that real quick, Aaron, I'm saying that's good. It's our marriage. So I know that sounds kind of like I'm self-promoting. But one thing that we teach with It Takes Two is trying to sort of get out of the box of traditional roles. And that you don't necessarily, and if you want to be in traditional roles, that's totally fine. But we just don't want couples to get stuck in a box where they feel like, I have to do this one thing because I'm a woman, and you have to do this one thing because you're a man, and then we're both failing at whatever that one thing is because it's just really not our niche, or it's not our area, or we're just not good at that particular thing, and our marriages suffer as a result of trying to fit into certain boxes. And so, one thing that we do encourage with It Takes Two is doing what you're good at. If you're really good at doing the finances, then whoever it is does those finances. If you're really good at, cooking dinner, you're a great chef, then you handle the food. Or if you're really good at, keeping everything organized and clean, then that's sort of your role. And you might have those to be interchangeable depending on the day and the time that's going on in your life and in your marriage. But, just doing what you actually are good at doing. And sometimes there's things that neither one of y'all good at doing, and you just got to compromise on it. But trying to keep yourself out of your marriage failing just for the sake of trying to keep up with tradition. So, Aaron, what does, in your marriage, what does it look like in terms of keeping up with those responsibilities?
Once again, knowing your partners is very important to us, me and my wife, and knowing what their strengths and weaknesses are. And I'll share true stories with you. One night we were in bed watching, I don't know if it was UFC or football or something. And we were both in bed, and my wife looks over at me. She says, "Oh, my blouse is ripped, missed the button." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Hand it to me." And so I'm in bed sewing her blouse, and she's chanting on for her fighter or for her team. Mm-hmm. And I just looked across and said, "This is so weird." But I did take alterations, and I do like mending different things. So, I mean, it fell right into that role. And I didn't think anything of it, and I just rolled over and I just went to sleep because I had to work the next day. And at the same time, when we were earlier in our marriage, we both had great ideals about getting ahead, but it didn't work. It didn't work, and then we didn't realize why it wasn't working. She had great ideals. I had great ideals. We just weren't sharing them. She was trying to do her ideals, and I was trying to do mine, and we were actually canceling each other out. So communication is very, very important. Once we started putting our thoughts together, and things started rolling in the direction we wanted to. And traditional roles had no play in it whatsoever. Like you said, Maurice, it's what you're stronger at. That's where that person took the lead, and that's the way it is. And that's, to me, a great road to success.
That's good stuff. So I'm a switch gears just a tad bit. One of the conversations that I was having preparing for this segment is, and this may or may not be an issue for the two of you. I don't know. I'm unsure. Is the role of the father Superman concept. So, and what I'm meaning in reference to that is not your daughters.
Yeah, what do you mean?
But your wife's fathers. And what we often talk about in the world of counseling that everybody is a product of your environment. I mean, there's a whole theory around the way you were raised is 99% of who you become as an adult. There's times, of course, that people change and mend and bend a little bit based on the way they were raised. But for the most part, we are a product of what we've grown up around. And so for a lot of girls that have the beauty of having a positive relationship with their fathers, they sort of develop this princess king concept with their daddies. And these girls grow up and they become women, and now maybe your wives. And they still have these awesome relationships with their king, which is their daddy, and their daddy treats them as the princess. How does it, if it does, affect your marriage? Or do you have this situation within your marriage? How is it handled? How does it affect it? What does it look like for you to kind of tackle this princess, king, or Superman concept?
Do we have enough time? No, I'm joking. It's kind of challenging at sometimes because she sees her father as the knight in shining armor, and then you're like, well, what am I? Like,
it's not like that.
Your daddy could do any little thing. Oh, my daddy moved a piece of paper. Did you see that? Well, I moved the same paper, but I didn't get the same response. But it's challenging at sometimes. But you also got to know that that's her father. That's the person who raised her. That's the person who took care of her for all her life until God put you together. So, I could deal with it every now and then. It's not like something that's a deal breaker. It gets annoying sometimes, but it's cool.
That's good stuff. Aaron, before you answer real quick, we're going to take a short break. We're going to take a short break, and we will be right back. Are you struggling with communication? Or do you find it difficult to trust your spouse? Has your sex life decreased, or has it become non-existent? Do you find yourself arguing over the little things? Join It Takes Two Marriage Coaching for our next marriage retreat. Meet us in the mountains of Gatlinburg, Tennessee, October the 2nd through the 4th, 2015, for fun and engaging activities that are sure to rekindle the love, reignite the flame, and help you remember why you fell in love with your spouse in the first place. For more details or to reserve your spot, call us at 704-449-6542 or visit us at www.ittakes2marriagecoaching.com and click on upcoming retreats. Welcome back to WDRB Media and WGIV, the soul of Charlotte, and those streaming live through the free TuneIn Radio app. You're listening to Marriage Matters, and I'm your host, the Marriage Coach. If you're just tuning in, we've been in the studio with Mr. Aaron and Mr. Maurice, and they have just been shedding light, insight, thoughts on being a husband, being a father, and being career man. So we're going to jump right back into this before we end our segment for the night. Right before the break, I'd ask you all, how do you deal with the princess, king, or princess and superhero concept within your marriage in reference to your wives' relationships with their husbands? So Maurice, you just gave us a very interesting answer that I think is awesome, and you just expressed, if I'm wrapping this up correctly, that sometimes it could be a headache or a challenge to hear your wife always talk about the wonderful things that daddy does, even if it's the exact same thing that you do as a husband, and maybe you don't get the same accolades or praise. But you said it's not a deal breaker. It's not something that, is too crazy that you can't deal with. You have an understanding of it because that's who she's been with and who's raised her and taken care of her up until God placed you in her life, right? Did I get that right?
Yes.
All right. So, Aaron, tell us, does this affect your marriage? And if so, in what ways and how do you deal with it?
Yes, it affects our marriage, but I'm one of those men who I don't try to impress the parents, mother or father. And so when it came time for me to meet her father, who she had very high esteem for, I had in my mind, I'm like, I'm not here to please him, Mm-hmm. Sometimes you go into a marriage, and if you're blessed enough to have a great wife, then you're blessed. And we all have asked God in some way, shape, or form to hit the lottery, and our God is perfect. Mm-hmm. And I think he has a wonderful sense of humor because I hit the lottery. And I mean that in the sense of,
I love that.
When I met my wife, I felt blessed. I felt really lucky. But it didn't stop there. Mm-hmm. I not only love her mother, and her mother loves me, I love her father, mm-hmm. and her father loves me, and her aunts and uncles, her sisters. I mean, it seemed like it was meant to be. So, in a sense, God gave me exactly what I asked for. I hit the lottery with my wife's family.
Yeah.
Now, my father-in-law has 5 daughters, and I am the only son-in-law, so I like to think I'm the favorite son-in-law. Uh-huh. We actually have a lot in common, so when I spend time with him or we're doing things, I get the same respect he gets, mm-hmm. And he sees me as, I'm that one that's going to fill his shoes because I believe in a strong family. I believe in family unity. So it works out very well. So mm-hmm. I didn't go in to try and impress him or her mother, but it just seems like that was a family that I was supposed to be a part of.
That's a beautiful thing.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It does. I love that. All right, so before we wrap up today's segment, I'm going to ask you two just a quick question. If you can each answer it in about a minute and a half at the longest. We've got husbands out there who are tuned in today, maybe men who are not married that are engaged and will be in fulfilling the same roles that you guys are doing today. If you could give a tidbit of advice to a man out there who's tuning in, who's listening, on how to stay balanced, on how to, be a father, be a great father, and a great husband, and a great career man, what would that advice be? 30 seconds each, real quick.
Be true to yourself, know your partner, and you will work out everything else.
Love it.
Have some time for yourself so you can debrief. So everything won't become overwhelming for you, and just pray and have faith.
Love it. All right, make sure you join us next week as we continue this discussion on all things marriage. We're actually going to have these husbands again in the studio with us next week for a part 2. Thank you for tuning in tonight, and continue to tune in every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Please remember to connect with me by going to Facebook and searching for Marriage Matters, WGIV. Like our page to stay abreast topics, comments, and ask us questions. Did you enjoy today's show? If you did, tell someone about it. Show us some love on our Facebook page or via email at marriagematterswgiv@gmail.com. Also, if you're interested in being a guest on our show or want to advertise at a great low rate, give us a call at 704-449-6542. Again, thank you for tuning in to Marriage Matters.